All right, here we are, part one of the Cymbal Redux project, where we are aiming at the vibe of this 22-inch Labyrinth, 2,495 grams. I have my blanks pulled over here. I have some flat blanks that I will be hand forming a bell into, like this one right here. And so the goal with these ones is to, measure the bell here, mark out my border, and shape the bell using the kind of general curvature that this one has before I then go to actually shaping the blank itself. And these are oversized, so they're close to 23, maybe actually even over 23 inches, so they're gonna then get cut down. This is important because the bell shaping and even the bold nature of these blanks will cause the height to go up fairly fast without a lot of hand hammering. So being able to hand hammer the shape, then go in and cut the edge down is really going to help get my profile shape lower, so that I can then come back in and do the last bit of hammering to ensure that it has the same low profile that the reference has. We've got some 22s in there. We got some ones that are going to be 20s. And then we have a few pressed bell versions. So these ones are going to be cleaner and slightly more open and resonant sounding versions of the reference. Since the reference has the hand-formed bells, my hand-formed bells, I'm usually going for a slightly smaller bell shape. But because there's all these little compression points in the metal, that creates a drier, darker sound overall compared to the pressed bell versions. So let's get on it. I'm gonna start swinging the hammer. I'll show you guys a little bit of the process, and I'll jump on every now and then to kind of talk through what I'm experiencing as I'm hammering these, with the goal of turning them into the Redux versions of this original. All right, so that's the bell on this 22-inch done. You saw I basically scratched out my border and hammered a hard ring, and then went on the underside and sort of filled this in, sort of pushed the bell out into the shape that I want. The bell on the reference is 5 inches, almost exactly, but it starts to slope up at the 4 3/4 inch mark. So I'm paying attention to where the curvature is. Hammering bells, in my mind, is a lot like hammering the profile of a cymbal, just in a very small formats, and you can do so much with that small area to affect the sound of a cymbal. So The bell on this guy is more of a plateau shape, so it kind of rises up and then flattens off. And these bells have a mellow sound, they have a dark sound, and with the ones I make, they're a little bit more on the warm side. If you have a bell that just continues to rise and its peak is in the center and it's taller, you have a more open sound, you have a more resonant sound, and a more pure and piercing sound. So the cymbal here, the sound that the entire cymbal has really does start with that bell. So much of the sound comes from the bell. It's such a small area, but it's so important to the overall manufacturing of a cymbal and the kind of sound that you're going to get, which is why when I go to these pressed bells, I will be hand hammering them and modifying them, but I know that they are going to have a slightly cleaner sound, a slightly more open, resonant, and they're going to have a little bit more projection to them, regardless of how much hammering I do, because the pressed shape is already taller than the shape of the reference. So I'm going for the same vibe, but that bell is going to give me this, it's going to be kind of a kink in the works, and I'm going to have to adjust and take some different elements and work that into the body of the cymbal to sort of get to a similar place with the overall vibe. So now I got to do this many more times, and then we'll head on to the hammering of the profile, the body of each cymbal. All right, so that part you just saw is the grunt part. It's the part where you're just wrestling the shape of the body, shape of the profile, and trying to get it to a good place. And so I decided to just show you what happens if you just hammer on one side, which I wouldn't normally do this. Sometimes there's going to be a little bit of work that happens on the underside first. Because I have this hand-formed bell in the center, that work that's been done there is going to want to give it the nice, it's going to invite it into a nice shape already. So I did a bunch of work on top because I had all these lumps and bumps and craziness going on. And at this point, it's all tacoed, and I'm going to show you how I flip it or attempt to flip it, and then we'll be able to assess, does it want to flip the right way, or is there more work that's needed? So what I do is typically just put it on the ground here. I've got a little rubber mat below me, and I use my foot to kind of just leverage it and try to pop it into place. Usually it makes a real nasty sound like that. And it flips, but it's got all these zones like right here where it's just dipping in like crazy. You can see it on this side for sure. So now we got to get in there and get some information on the underside of the cymbal so that we're able to start to kind of interplay top and bottom hammering, and that's how we iron out our shape. And the more hammering we do, the taller it goes. With the reference, the Redux of the original, we are not going for a tall shape. We're going for nice and low, medium low, I'll say, because there's still got to be enough strength for the stick definition. So now we're going to go in on the underside, and these real lumpy areas, I'll be putting some information in on this side to kind of push that stuff out. All right, so that was a round of hammering on the bottom and then another round on top. And I am actually paying attention to all of the shadows. So the strikes that I do on the one side, you see the shadow of them on the opposite side. I'm paying attention to those so that I can kind of hit in between those marks. And I'm pretty good at doing it by this point and not actually slamming on top of a strike that I've already made from the other side. So I do this kind of interlaced top and bottom hammering to iron the shape out. And at this point, when I flip it back, it's a little bit tacoed. And when I come in and flip it again, for the most part, we got ourselves a shape, and a not half bad one at that. So at this point, I'm about ready to take this to the lathe to edge it, but there are some things I got to deal with first. So it's really hard to show, but on this side that you can see, it's really bold and curved here. And then the other side's a little bit flat and smooth. So I've got to iron that out first. All of the inconsistencies and the warps and the bends in the blank are things I have to account for and iron out. And when you're trying to hammer on those and push them into place, oftentimes you can grow more of a shape on one side than the other. So before I take this thing to be edged officially, I need to iron that out, which means it's probably going to get pretty tall and not what I typically want, but knowing that I have about 1.5 inches of extra material that will be shaved away, I know that as soon as I shave that material, that profile is going to drop way, way down, and then I'll be in a good place to finish up the hammering, lathing, final round of hammering, and finish the cymbal, and be in the same general vibe as the reference. So we're well on our way with this Redux cymbal, and I've got to do it like another 9 times beyond this one, but I'll hop on when I have another update.